So, what if I told you a massive corporation, staring down the barrel of total collapse, cooked up a plan so audacious it was less like a financial restructuring and more like a heist? Well, forget the bank vaults. Today, we're cracking open Project Phoenix.
And this was the target. Almost $8 billion in debt. I mean, just let that number sink in. It's a figure that would absolutely crush most companies. A real ticking time bomb.
Which brings us to the big, seemingly impossible question. How on earth do you make a mountain of debt like that just vanish? How do you get out from under all that pressure from creditors and just walk away clean without having to file for bankruptcy? It sounds like it can't be done, right? Well, that's where the genius of this plan comes in.
Okay, so to really get how they pulled this off, you first have to understand just how bad the situation was. The company was caught in a classic debt trap. And believe me, the walls were closing in and fast.
You see, it wasn't just one problem. It was a perfect storm. You had the sheer size of the debt, of course, but you also had deadlines coming up that they knew they couldn't meet. And maybe worst of all, their creditors weren't just a random bunch of people. No, they were organized, they were united, and they were legally bound to act as a single block, which made negotiating with them almost impossible. This was a serious standoff. So, with their backs completely against the wall, they came up with a master plan, the codename Project Phoenix, and the goal was pretty simple, to rise from the ashes of their own crushing debt. Now, the absolute core of this whole thing is a concept called the bankruptcy discount. See, when a company is circling the drain, the value of its debt just collapses. A bond that was worth $1 might suddenly only be trading for, say, 10 cents, because nobody thinks they're going to get paid. The genius of Project Phoenix was figuring out how to get that massive discount, to buy back their own debt for pennies on the dollar without actually having to go through a messy, painful bankruptcy.
And like any good heist, it's all about the prep work. The first few moves had to be perfect, they had to be quiet, and they set the stage for everything that came next. So, phase 0. They secured the getaway car. They went to their banks and got a new line of credit lined up. But here's the clever part. It would only become available after they got rid of a bunch of their other debt. It was a safety net that nobody else could see. Then came phase 1, a quiet little operation where they used a subsidiary to buy back $1.3 billion worth of stock for just 70 or 80 million bucks, a totally stealth move that took a huge problem off the table before the alarm bells could even ring. All right, with the foundation set, it was time to go after the main targets. We're talking about those organized creditor groups, the ones holding billions in debt who were standing right in the way of the company's survival.
The next phase went after a $1.6 billion block of debt. The tool they used was something called a Dutch tender offer, which is basically a reverse auction. But they added this brilliant psychological twist. The deal was, we'll buy back your debt for a fraction of what it's worth. But this offer is only good if our entire restructuring plan works. And the message to those creditors? It was absolutely ruthless. It was basically, look, you can take the 12 cents on the dollar we're offering you right now, or you can hold out and get absolutely nothing when this whole thing goes under. It was a tough, tough choice, an offer they really couldn't afford to refuse. But that still left the biggest problem on the board. This one powerful, unified group of creditors holding over $2 billion in bonds. And these guys had signed a legal agreement that literally prevented any one of them from breaking ranks and selling on their own. Their whole strategy was built on sticking together. So how do you break an unbreakable alliance? Well, you need a special tool, a kind of financial crowbar. And that's exactly what they came up with, the indemnified private exchange. Instead of a public offer, they went to the biggest players in that creditor group, secretly, one by one. And here's the masterstroke, indemnification. The company didn't just offer them a good price, they offered them a legal shield. They said, hey, sell your bonds to us, and if your old partners sue you for breaking your little agreement, don't worry about it. We'll pay all your legal fees. We're buying all the risk. I mean, what an offer. It made betraying the group not only profitable, but completely risk-free. And just like that, the alliance completely crumbled. So, the debt's gone, the opposition is shattered, the heist is a success. But hold on, every good heist movie has one last problem to solve before you can ride off into the sunset, right? In this case, it was the tax man. Yeah, it's a really weird quirk in tax law. When you get rid of debt for less than you owed, that forgiven amount can be counted as taxable income.
So by succeeding so brilliantly, they had actually created a brand new, massive problem for themselves, a potential tax bill of $1.4 billion. So what was the plan? They decided to kick the can so far down the road, it would be years before anyone found it. The strategy was this: file the tax return but claim a special exception so they wouldn't have to pay. They knew the IRS would fight it, so they prepared to spend years in court. The whole point was to delay any actual cash payment all the way out to 2032 or 2033. They basically gave themselves a decade-long interest-free loan from the government.
So, after all of that, after all the stealthy moves, the psychological games, the legal maneuvering, what did the final take from this whole operation really look like? The numbers are just wow. They started with nearly $8 billion in liabilities. And when the dust settled, they were down to under $3 billion. They literally made $5 billion of debt just disappear.
And you can see it right here, across the board. Total debt, crushed. Their leverage ratio, a really key indicator of a company's health, was cut almost in half. And they bought themselves years of breathing room on the remaining debt. By any and every metric, Project Phoenix wasn't just a success. It was a spectacular home run. Which kind of leaves us with one big question. When you look at the sheer audacity and the incredible results, what was this really? Was Project Phoenix a brilliant rescue mission that saved a company from the brink? Or was it a masterclass in exploiting every single legal and ethical loophole you can find? I'll let you be the judge.